Together we question.
Together we achieve.
Together we create.
Together we overcome.
And together we inspire. Welcome to the Empower You podcast.
Today's episode is brought to you by the Faculty of Science at the University of Victoria. Joining us now is Peyton Chernoff, a fourth-year mechanical engineering student who's passionate about building race cars and promoting inclusivity in STEM. She is the ambassador for Inspire's project with the Greater Victoria Coalition to End Homelessness and hopes to make a positive difference in the lives of women plus fleeing domestic violence through her involvement with this initiative.
And our second guest today is Aikaterini Tavri, Katia for short, a PhD candidate at the Department of Geography studying the Arctic sea ice melt using satellite data. She is the ambassador for the RUSH initiative, focusing on making local climate vulnerability data accessible. She is passionate about teaching and translating data into meaningful stories, and that's what RUSH is all about.
So, Peyton, for our listeners' sake, could you just briefly describe what an ambassador is exactly and what that role entails?
Yeah, absolutely. So ambassadors are sort of guides and, in a sense, mentors for the teams, the Apprentice Garage members. So they help them with any support they need, be it with challenging dynamics within the team or interacting with community partners or any sort of external partners or whatnot. Yeah, basically just being there to support however necessary. Like, we've been through the training and we did our own little design thinking project through our training. So we've been through it before. We're just there to help.
I didn't realize you guys actually did the IBM training before all this. You did? You had to get the badges and everything. And
we went through the co-creator that y'all are doing as well.
Okay. Yeah. That's great to know, actually.
Yeah.
Good reference. How was that sort of onboarding process for you, Katia?
You mean coming into the program or just being an ambassador?
Becoming an ambassador and coming onto the program.
Yeah, I saw the post. Actually, my boyfriend emailed it to me and he's like, this is a good opportunity. You should just check it out. Because I've been teaching since many years. From the first year of my PhD, I wanted to explore more teaching, and I've been a TA, as I guess most of the students. So I wanted to explore more hands-on opportunities, because as a TA you go through 40, 50 different students, so it's not very easy to know and connect with them, even though I've had a lot of interesting experiences going through that. So I wanted to see if it's possible for me to have a team where I can mentor them through a process of creating something that is a real solution. Because with the courses, you have the semester is over, the course is over, that's your impact. But I wanted to have something a little bit more impactful and see if I like it also, right?
Right. That makes so much sense. I really respect that decision. Yeah. And what sort of projects are you guys working on right now? With what are your teams about, would you say?
Let's start with Katia, because I know you, Parker, and Peyton are on the same team.
Yeah.
So let's start with Katia.
Yeah, our project is called the RUSH Initiative, and it's actually standing for Resilient Urban Systems and Habitats. And the idea behind it actually started from our community partner, Anne-Marie, and an organization she put together, which is called Nature R&D. So it's kind of seems like natured. The logo is very beautiful. I find it quite smart. And the idea is that we have a lot of open access information about climate data, or even local information about the bike routes, the fountains that you can find water, a lot of geographical information that is available for many places in the world, but there's no connectivity behind what's happening around you and how this can be affecting your life in the terms of climate change. So I think the project started as an inspiration of big events that happen around the life of different people that are affected from climate change effects. And then they wanted, first of all, to know where these things are coming from or how we can make the situation better, or more people to understand where are the impacts and how we can battle these impacts in a local level. And the whole project is focusing on creating an interactive web page where people have different kind of options depending on if you're familiar with maps or not. You get the chance to interactively find your location on the map and see what kind of pressures you have in your area, what is a force that is, making, for example, a map representing the heat domes and the heat islands around Victoria, and then how you can find solutions on the spot to make your experience better or contribute to collect data. It has a lot of different layers, but the idea is you have a web page where all the information and all the geographic information systems, so called GIS, all these layers are kind of laid out for you in a meaningful way. And together with the layers, you have information about a prominent event and then solutions of how to battle this event. Or, for example, sea level rise is a real threat for a lot of the coastal areas, and we're on an island, right? Yeah. So being able to know if you're in a vulnerable area and how to protect yourself from the future impacts, I think it's very, very useful.
I think that's a great idea.
Amazing. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Can I ask you, when or how can interested listeners actually obtain more information about this? Because as a local resident, I'm super concerned, especially about the sea rising levels, and I live on the little coastal area, like in an inlet. So I know my home is unfortunately in one of those potential flooding areas. So how can listeners obtain more information?
Yeah, the interesting part about the whole project is that we're using open access data and open access ways to represent the data. So everyone that wants to access the information, they can navigate on our webpage once completed and then be able to see what's happening around them. So the challenge with the project is that sometimes we're working with data that have been generated from other people. So we're not generating this data. So the coverage is something that might be an issue, depending on who's creating the data. But overall, we have some good coverage over the greater Victoria area and the capital region district, which is called CRD. The locals probably know it better than me. But it really has a lot of different layers of information that people can actually look upon. And one other really cool thing, if you ask me, is that we're coupling this information with events. So while you're on the webpage, you are able to see what's happening around you. And by just clicking your location on the map, you can see if there is an event for cleaning a beach around your area, or putting trees of different species, like planting trees, I guess.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And all these events are happening all the time, but we don't know them because they are not concentrated in any form. So you might know them if you have friends that are doing this, or they're part of a community initiative. But if you don't know it, then you're missing out a lot of things that are happening. And there are a lot. Just by making the event map, I was surprised on how many initiatives are happening, but I've never heard of before.
That's incredible. Because I have a lot of friends and people that I know that feel daunted by global warming, and they actually feel kind of demotivated, like there's not much we can do. So having that as a resource where you're like, hey, there's actionable things in your community, things right around you that you can actually take part in, I think that's an incredible idea. Like that's remarkable. How's the progress of that going? Is it?
Yeah, I wanted to comment also on that feeling that everyone has, right? And me also working on my project in the Arctic, seeing the sea ice every year just depleting more and more, this is everyone asking me, are you depressed? I mean, one way to be about it is being depressed, which I don't really think it leads to any action. I think the more we understand the information and understand the connections of what is happening, the more we can take action on. And I think the webpage does a really good job of explaining what is the what the visuals are about, but then how this can be connected to you and your specific action. And you asked me how things are going with the webpage, or
the state of the project at the moment.
Yeah, so we're in a good level. I find that the website is almost ready. So we have a lot of buttons that are working and a lot of maps that we have created as mini stories, so people can go and look into that. And we're hoping by the end of next week, we'll be completely done and running with a lot of our examples. So it's been a crazy process because, as I said, we really try to keep everything open access. And for people outside that realm, maybe they don't understand why is that important. But being able to have this information without the constraint of another let's say, company telling you, hey, your license is expired. You cannot see any of your projects anymore. It's a big freedom in that domain. And we're talking about big data. Mm-hmm. So also having the capacity to have them not linked with money, I think it's really good for seeing this growing faster, right?
That's amazing. Mm-hmm. Oh my goodness. That was very informative in like 5 minutes. So thank you, Katia. No, we're going to move on to Peyton, who is the ambassador for another amazing local community project. So can you tell us more about that, Peyton?
Absolutely. So our community partner is Michelle Vanju-Orozco from the Greater Victoria Coalition to End Homelessness. So that's a coalition of a bunch of regional organizations who collectively have the goal of eliminating functional homelessness, by the year 2030. And their approach is really human-centered and really caring and compassionate. So that has gotten them a far way. And also my team has taken that sort of approach to our project as well. And there's a lot of passion behind our teammates, which is fantastic. And the project that we're actually working on started with another group in UVic, actually. They did some research on a Women Plus Fleeing Violence Navigator application. And my team has kind of taken that, done an incredible amount of research and user feedback, running focus groups and everything like that. So the purpose is to develop an app that improves the lives of women plus who are fleeing violence. So a big challenge to that was actually figuring out what the root of the problem is and who the core users for this application would be to make the most impact. And there were multiple pivots back and forth between, is it the women plus fleeing violence, or is the bottleneck at the support workers at the shelters who are overwhelmed, overworked, and super stressed? And it ended up being kind of both. So our application has a web page for the support workers to be able to manage their, database for their specific shelter and the kinds of services that are available there, and ultimately allow people to be added to, a wait list of sorts for the shelters, which was a big concern and a big pain point that we talked to some women with lived experience.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I don't want to delve too much into the project because we actually are going to have you and one of your Apprentice Garage members actually come on another episode and talk about it in greater detail. So I don't want to give too much away. But can you tell us why you wanted to work on this specific project?
Yeah, absolutely. So being in STEM and being able to go to university, I feel extremely privileged to have that experience and gain that knowledge. And also the sort of leadership knowledge that I've gained over my years, being involved in other student clubs and stuff. I wanted to be able to use that, and produce something that makes a positive impact on people's lives. And being in Victoria, homelessness is a really prolific issue. And there's so many people that experience, that have lived experience. And being able to make an impact at all, with my STEM knowledge, was kind of why I wanted to join this initiative in particular. And the fact that it was focusing solely on women plus for now, there's always scalability, but that sort of hit home because I couldn't imagine being in the position that a lot of these women are in. And if there's anything that my knowledge could do to provide them with support, I want to do it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And for anyone listening, I'm also a member of that team. Peyton is my team's ambassador. One of our questions actually is if you could just briefly talk about the backgrounds, both professional and academic, of the team members.
We have quite a diverse background on our team. So you're software and computer science, but Sean is as well. And then we have mechanical engineering. There's 2 of us on the team with mechanical engineering background and 1 biomedical. So the fact that it's a software application is super useful to have 2 members with that background. But that also means that the other 3 members with less software experience gain a lot. We also come from different professional backgrounds. We have an entrepreneur on the team who has started his own software company, which has been invaluable. It has been key to having us get a working prototype off the ground so quickly. And I'm sure the amount of learning that the rest of the team does is just expedited so much because having him with us. But we also have someone on the team who's worked with the Victoria Hand Project, which is another nonprofit organization out of UVic actually that makes prosthetic hands for amputees.
Wow.
Yeah. So we have a very diverse professional background and also like education. And I think that really helps the project, not only with the technical skills, but just the different perspectives on things. And we have people that have come from different countries on the team. And that lends a lot of different perspectives, and seeing it through different lenses with such a complicated issue like this, that is something that is so key to creating compassion and like a truly user-centered solution. Yeah.
Absolutely. What about you, Katia? What's your team makeup?
Yeah, so we also have a quite diverse team, and it's important to say that they have no background in GIS data. They didn't know what GIS stands for when they actually started the project, which is very interesting for me because I think that's the expertise I brought on when I joined that team. It's interesting also to say that we never had like someone working with building a website before. So they completely started everything from scratch and learning through the Inspire workshops actually how to start building their webpage on React, if I can say that. I think I can, right? Just using React, building the website and creating different functionalities and buttons. And I was very surprised that, only in a couple of months I did that, which is amazing. So the background of the team, starting with Yasin, he's in business and slowly integrating to computer science. He said to me very recently, he just made that turn. So a business student coding a web page for climate data.
No way, he's actually transitioned now. That's cool
slowly.
for him.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So I think he was inspired by the fact that he is able to do all that coding and being able to create a solution just from the things he knows. So
he's doing great from what I've heard.
Yeah, he's pretty good. Then we have Chris, that they are their background is computer science and physics. So they also did a lot of coding and playing around with React and discovering how the functionalities of the web page and the design, all these kind of little things that you don't think about, and the objectives, of course. And then Kasana, she's in chemistry, focused on chemistry for medical sciences. And she has been, I would say, the person that does most of the mapping. With my help, she created most of the thinking behind each layer, how the groups, the layers that we have are grouped together to be meaningful, learn a lot about mapping and a lot about ecology and a lot of the physical information that we have available around Victoria, and it's just sitting there, nobody's touching it. So, yeah, that's the team.
I think this is fantastic because these students wouldn't have this opportunity to work on something so out of the realm of their usual safe space, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're completely in a new comfort zone,
Absolutely.
right? And one thing I want to ask to both of you actually is, how is this project different than the ones that you have worked on in the past? Let's start with you, Peyton.
Okay, sure. Yeah, I mean, technically it's very different. I've never worked on developing an app or honestly anything really software related aside from like MATLAB, which is software language for mechanical engineers, but
also science.
Also science.
Also
yeah,
science.
It's like programming, but not really programming.
We do that. It's fun.
I like MATLAB, but there's a lot of different skills that I didn't know coming into it, and honestly it was a bit challenging because I can't support my team in that as well as I'd like to, because normally I'm used to, if I'm in a position of leadership, I'm in a position of like greater technical knowledge than most people, and I'm there to sort of mentor them in that way. So that was challenging, but I guess it's just finding how else I can support them and get those resources for them. With Sean, the technical stuff is usually okay because he has loads of experience.
Yeah, we got really lucky with Sean.
Yeah, we did.
You did.
Very grateful.
Sean, if you're listening, you are valuable.
Yeah, big shout out to
Come
Sean.
join the Rust team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, other than that, it's been incredible to see how far the students have grown too. Like, coming from, a lot of them, it's their first co-op experience. So it's the first experience working in any sort of like work environment.
Wow.
And this one is very startup vibes in the way that it's like fast paced.
Mhm.
You're out of your comfort zone. You're constantly learning. But like seeing that was the coolest part for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, I want to ask how you thought the team has grown since the first week compared to now.
So far.
Yeah, you think
so far. Like, I remember the first Zoom call that we all had together. Everyone's like so shy and like a little bit uncomfortable, and like that you could tell that they wanted to like speak out and, you know, go get it, but they're a bit hesitant. But now, like, I sit in on, like, I guess you would call it scrum meetings or whatever. And everyone's like throwing their ideas out. Like, they've definitely like formed a really strong team dynamic, and I'm proud to see how that's been going. I think I don't know if it's the case, but it seems like you guys have kind of been united through the challenges, because this is an emotionally challenging project as well as being technically challenging. And
I think our first presentation that we had to do was our most team forming experience that we've been through, because it was awful at first. Like our first like demo of it or dry run, we bombed it. Like in front of the whole Inspire team, like groups, like we just bombed it. And after that, we were like, never again.
Never again.
And ever since then, we've been like buckled down together and like being pretty focused. So it was a really important experience for us, I think. But
yeah, you guys really came together then. And since then, I feel like you guys have found your groove for the most part. I mean, any team dynamics, there's always going to be bumps in the road. But
yeah.
And
we care
sorry,
a lot about
Parker.
each other. No, it's fine. It's all good.
I was just going to say, and like failure is totally normal, and that's how you learn, right? And it only made you guys stronger.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah. So instead of like falling apart, you picked yourself back up and you worked even harder, which is incredible.
Yeah.
And I want to extend the question to Katia as a PhD student, especially. How is this different than any projects you've worked on in the past?
I'm working with people versus working alone. I don't know.
That's a big one, honestly.
Yeah. It's a lonely life being a PhD, and I think it's like your own baby that you're growing through the years, where here I have to share, and I actually have to be careful not to do so much hand-holding with my team. And I think I went through a phase that I was like, trying to take care of everything, and it was very stressful for me too, and I think also for them a bit confusing. They didn't know what are my roles exactly, how much they can give to me and how much I can take on. So I think for me it was different on the fact to the fact that I have to be with other people, and I have not to take over. For me, I tend to take over. That's the big challenge, that I feel very connected. And I mean, the project is something I feel very connected to. So it was important for me to take a step back and give the space to the people that they need to, you know, like let them decide most of the things. Because when you also have knowledge about things, you tend to be biased to your own perspective. So having this group coming from completely different background, they created something that is theirs, and it's, you know, in a way pure from my, you know, biased guiding towards one solution versus the other. I think the one thing I influenced them the most was the open access, because this is a struggle I have with my work every time I need a tool. So for me, tools, they have to be accessible. The information has to be accessible. So yeah, I guess, and if I think how much we'll grow, I think there's no single person that would say, oh, we didn't grow. There's no way. You're always different from today versus yesterday. And it's really amazing to see all the progression, and also the fact that people enjoy that we are not at the end and, you know, struggling to get things together. We're excited. We want this to be something impactful. We want this to be something that it won't stop after Inspire. You know, you want this to blossom and become a start of something big, or a start of something local but useful. That was, I think, that's the fire that burns through the team, I guess.
Definitely.
That's interesting that was your biggest challenge, was taking a step back, because that was mine as well.
Yeah.
In science, you're lonely. It's a lonely life. You don't get to work with awesome people, and you're stuck in a lab alone. So that's interesting. I didn't know that was yours. So that's really cool to hear.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I guess.
I know, right?
What about like specific team challenges? Has there been like any specific stumbling block for your guys' project so far?
I can go first, because we start with some bumpy beginnings, because we had initially 4 members, then we increased to 5, and then we went to 3. So that was a big challenge. Actually, not losing the whole team in the way. because it was on the table. People start getting scared of not being able to make it because we're a smaller team. How are we going to make it? It's a lot of tasks and a team of non-expertise. So all of a sudden you have to take on big tasks on your own, and then inform the whole team also, because the idea is not only one doing one job, but kind of circulating it around. So for me, that was the challenging point where you kind of have to tackle it. We're like, all of a sudden we thought we had an advantage. The two people that left also had a huge expertise in GIS and climate data. We lost a big amount of people, like a good portion of the work is gone. And then everyone is like shaky, is like, are we going to make it? And we're making it. So that's yeah, I think that's where the lines for me also got blurry, because I had to take over some of the things to make sure that my team is keeping up with it. So I would say it seems like a long time ago, but it wasn't.
Only like a few months ago, not even, right?
Yeah. Definitely.
What about our team, Peyton? What have you observed?
You know this well, Parker.
Can you be honest?
I can be honest, absolutely. I think the toughest part from my perspective was how many darn pivots we had to make. God. Like, you want to make sure that the project you're building, or the product, I guess, is actually well suited for your users, and it's going to make the best impact. And here the problem is so complex. There's so many different layers to why the system's not working right now. And the team kind of was going in circles, almost trying to figure out, where do we even start with this? Like, where is the best place that we can put the most energy to make the most impact? And we ended up pivoting. What was it, like three times?
I think
three
it was like
main pivots?
4 times. We reported 3 times.
Yeah.
It's been a lot of times.
It's
become a word that we don't even say in the office anymore.
It's like a trigger word.
Pivot.
Yeah.
Pivot.
We're done with that. Don't you dare.
Yeah. So just making a change in direction, when you've put your heart and soul into something is really difficult to come back from. But the team's done it so many times now that I think you've grown a lot from it personally. Like everyone has grown from it and realized that failure is not failure. It's not your own failure. It's the idea is not the best suited. And I hope that's what everyone's taken away from it, because that was definitely the biggest challenge so far. But I mean, now we're on the right direction, right? And then but there's still little sort of check-in points where you have to decide, like, is this the right direction? And although they're not as huge of a P word as before, there are still little decisions you have to make, and might have to circle around again and iterate through features and whatnot. But yeah, I'd say
because it never stops, right?
It never stops. Designing and iterating is forever. But
it's tough because, like, you care so deeply about what you're doing in the project, and you feel like you're making progress. You're like, oh, finally we're on a good direction, and we're going this way. And then you learn something from like a couple of new interviews. They're all saying the same thing, so you can't ignore it and just move on. You're like, damn it, we got to actually make a pivot. And it's been a lot.
You said it.
I did
say
the
word. You said the P word.
Maybe we can bleep the word out.
Production team.
This is filled with a bunch of beeps.
Very interesting. I think it's also very important in that case, though, to think that the project that you care about so much is necessary. You need to do this pivoting to be able to reach the project deliverable, right?
Absolutely.
So I think a way to think about it is like, okay, this brings me closer to something meaningful. So I should be okay with that. But I think it's always the case with projects, and any project, like Inspire, PhD, Masters, whatever you do, is something. It's a good skill to have.
That's a good point. But there's this like cognitive disconnect almost between knowing that that's the right thing to do and actually feeling like that's a good decision, something to act on. It's really hard.
I think we can all relate to that.
Getting comfy with failure and pivoting is always, it's hard. It's a constant
You said it
battle.
too.
I know.
Now it's going to be in my mind.
There's going to be so many beeps, man.
Andrew, we gotta beep all of this out.
Well, we're almost out of time, so I want to ask, because I already asked Katia, how interested listeners can obtain more information about the project. So Peyton, I want to ask you the same question.
Yeah. So, I mean, the hopes is to have eventually some kind of, I guess, blog or something to follow this project, because we're hoping to continue it on in a nonprofit sort of sense. But our community partner, Michelle, with the Greater Victoria Coalition to End Homelessness, she's got another side project called Surfacing Our Strengths. And I'm assuming that there's going to be information uploaded on this project on the website as well. So that's GVCEH.org, I believe.
I believe so.
called?
Yeah, the Greater Victoria Coalition to End Homelessness
Yes.
has a main website. If you Google that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so this is one of the initiatives, and since it's going to be becoming larger in the future, they'll definitely have some things on there.
And we'll have a domain name soon.
Yes, soon.
Yeah.
To be announced. Maybe by the time we do our podcast, we'll have that up and running.
I think so, actually. Yeah, we have a couple ideas right now, but I won't get into it yet.
I'm
It'll be a
excited
big
to hear
reveal.
more.
Yeah.
Yeah, same for us, I guess. We're trying to decide for the domain name. It's
tough.
challenging because
It
it's like
is.
forever.
It is.
It's
It's
got to be
forever.
good right off the bat. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Definitely tough.
Absolutely. Thank you for tuning in to our 6th episode of Inspire. I'm your co-host, Parker DeBrune.
And I'm your co-host, Jenna Melman.
Join us next week for an episode on dealing with vulnerable sectors, stigma, and being considerate whilst innovating. Remember
to stay inspired and empowered. We'll catch you in the next episode.
Awesome. Thanks so much for joining us today, guys.
Thank
thanks for
you.
having
Thank
us.
you.
I'm Parker DeBrune.
I'm your co-host, Jenna Melman.
Thanks so much for tuning in today. Until next time, stay inspired.